Professor Sam Vaknin is one of the greatest psychologists in the modern world. He's an absolute go-to expert on personality disorders, especially narcissism, but he's also contributed to the field of mathematics and various other impressive things. He's a certifiable genius with a lot to say on the topic of psychology, his profession. And he regards psychology as a pseudoscience. Now, is he seeking to denigrate his own profession? No. He regards psychology as a pseudoscientific endeavor due to the individual narrativization and mythic, artistic, creative liberties in the creation of psychological concepts and theories, whereas something like neurology is absolutely purely scientific and quantifiable. There are no metaphysical theories in neurology, at least in terms of what is representative of neurological research, whereas psychology is filled with allegorical concepts and story ideas. For example, a lot of Freud's early understanding of psychology, think of the Electra or Oedipal concepts. These complexes are literally named after mythic stories. So the mythic, sort of metaphysically imbued nature of psychology and the artistic process of the concept creation in psychology is cited by Vaknin as a reason for it being pseudoscientific in nature. Does this mean that psychology is worthless because it has pseudoscientific elements? I don't think so, neither does Professor Vaknin. Monster Quest is one of the few, if not the only, cryptid or monster show that has the distinction of actually finding a cryptid. Now, what cryptid did they find? A Humboldt squid, which is a known animal that was discovered in the 1870s. It has no fossil record. Their size limits are unknown, but everybody who studies them seems to believe in these larger size ranges. The largest we found of Humboldt squid, keep in mind, this is calamari. This is the Humboldt squid, jumbo squid. We're familiar with this species. We catch it all the time, but the ones we catch range from about 3 to 7 feet long, and there are 10-footers down there. And Monster Quest found direct evidence on camera of a tentacular breadth of a Humboldt squid of 60 feet long. Now, this was determined specifically by cephalopod biologists to not be an Architeuthis or Mesonicoteuthis. Those are the giant squid and colossal squid, respectively. The proportions that were seen in the film actually specifically correspond to Humboldt anatomy, and a 3.5-foot Humboldt squid was actually present in the same frame for size comparison. So it would seem that the goal of cryptozoology is to usher its subjects into the realm of known science and known zoology. Now that footage is simply quietly accepted in marine biology and cephalopod biology circles. It's simply studied and understood as a remarkable piece of footage of an enormous Humboldt specimen that rivals even the largest Architeuthis. It's a controversial, crazy thing, but it's completely valid, and it demonstrates, I think, the merits of cryptozoology. And if you'll notice, even in spite of the slight graininess or blurriness of that footage, cephalopod biologists were still able to conclusively determine, yes, this is a large squid, yes, it adheres to the anatomical proportions of a Humboldt squid, quite simply scaled up, and it has other features in line with what you could expect hypothetically of a scaled up Humboldt squid, We've also found unusually large and morphologically distinct beaks in sperm whale digestive tracts, that some of them are larger than the largest known Architeuthis beaks. These are often considered to simply be the upper size parameters of Architeuthis themselves or Mesonicoteuthis, but it's possible that the humble squid is involved with that, with the upper ranges of cephalopod sizes. And that just demonstrates one aspect where supposedly grainy or blurry footage was used to directly correspond to known biology, and it rides the line between cryptozoology and zoology. The Humboldt squid is a known animal, there's no debate about that, but the upper ranges of its size represent a sort of cryptozoological issue, if you will. And another thing on the graininess of footage, what you're watching right now is a 2016, very slowed down Lake Champlain monster piece of footage, and the anatomy that's on display in the footage, when you really get down and study it, it has superficially bovid, sort of ungulate-like head structure. It resembles nothing in Lake Champlain. It's absolutely, but it's also clearly not some kind of Mesozoic reptile. It's not a Nessie plesiosaur. It's not a dragon. It's just quite literally a large aquatic vertebrate that we cannot yet identify until more research is done. And this is represented in situations like the Bodette film from 2005. These pieces of footage, the most tantalizing pieces of evidence, seem to be strategically cut out of our culture. We don't get the full footage. We don't get the high quality version. We don't get the full story. People aren't provided context. And regarding the whole blurry footage issue, people are experts on blurry, grainy, black and white, high contrast footage when it comes to criminal situations, legal situations. These grainy footage pieces have been used countless times in conjunction with eyewitness testimony to put people in prison for their entire lives. If you watch a lot of retail theft content online over the years, especially mid-2000s, you'll see a lot of the suspects. Think of this archetypal image: a suspect in a blank room, they're looking at a monitor with an officer next to them. That's you on the footage. What? That's just blurry nonsense. That's not me. How can you say that corresponds to me? Well, it has distinctive features that correspond to you individually, and that was used in conjunction with eyewitness testimony to conclude that it was you. You're going to jail. That is a common scene, even in a very controversial, I'm going to use a controversial couple of examples. There's a Bruder film of the Kennedy situation. You've got the moon landing films. Think about the graininess, the texture of that. And regarding astronomy, Robert Rines helped to develop the technology for those high contrast images of astronomical subjects like planets and stars and so forth. And when he applied that to the Loch Ness Monster, he was able to develop 3 images. Now, the first image was a stump, a sort of gnarled stump, and they actually retrieved the exact stump, and skeptics will look at the stump and say, see, the specific features correspond to the photo, and they're able to identify, despite the grain, despite the blurriness, they're able to correspond that stump with the subject of the photo 100,000% positively identified. The other 2 photos are where we get into trouble, because Rines develops the photos using his method that he's applied to innumerable instances of astronomical subjects. He applies it to these 2 images, superimposes them. Keep in mind it's multiple photographs taken and then superimposed, and then high contrast. That's all he does. And the 2 images depict a flipper and the front part of some kind of sea serpent-like animal with a vaguely horse-like, superficially horse-like head. It sort of looks like some kind of underwater giraffe, and these photos were just absolutely assaulted. They were just absolutely criticized and ripped to pieces, but you could, on the same basis, criticize his astronomical work, and he just applied very, very similar principles in the photography of the Loch Ness subject. And those are very compelling images. They were used to actually name Nessie Terrace Rhombophora, something like that, the Ness inhabitant with the diamond-shaped flipper. This was, of course, rejected. Academia rejects this stuff very predominantly. It's very powerful, the rejection, sort of reduced to a Monty Python sketch. The notion of unknown large aquatic reptiles is absolutely ridiculed, and you will be run out of an academic framework for suggesting this in any kind of serious capacity. Cadborosaurus wilsei, that was a carcass that has never been positively explained. The sturgeon, the basking shark, they do not explain the anatomy of the Cadborosaurus carcass. And there were never any stumps or any debris that corresponded to the two photos in the Rhines photos. So we've got very serious data to work with here. We've got very serious modern film coming out. Alex's Lake Monster of 2025 comes to mind. And of course this 2016 footage, even in isolation, even bereft of the Bodette Film or the Katie Elizabeth Lake Champlain echolocation evidence, or the Elizabeth von Muggenthaler evidence of the same process, even without any of that, I believe this footage that you're watching in super slowed down version, I believe that it demonstrates something that should not hypothetically be in the ecological system of Lake Champlain, and that would imply not that there is some kind of Mesozoic animal superimposed into that ecosystem, that well understood ecosystem, but that there are processes, there are systems involved with our known ecosystems that allow things like eels and crocodilians, catfish. I'm not saying that's what's on this footage, but just in principle, those animals have cryptic components to their ecology. Subterranean, crocodilian, burrow digging, and the creation of novel streams and mudways. There are elements to our known ecological systems that we are quite simply blind to, and that's because they are in nature cryptic. These are cryptic entities, cryptic ecological systems, shadow ecosystems, if you will, that we're dealing with. We're not just dealing with individual large vertebrates, but we're probably dealing with hundreds of unknown small invertebrates that support a component of the ecosystem that we have not even quantified. And that's what I would say about the merits of cryptozoology.